Mizzou football secures 2 commitments from athletes. Where do I think these 2 young men are going to end up position-wise? Plus, a former Dennis Gates target is already back on the market. So let's talk about this huge recruiting period coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. Thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube as well, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. And again, thanks for being patient. Sorry I didn't get one out yesterday. Was trying to stuff 20 pounds of manure into a 10-pound bag, as they say in the country, and well, just couldn't quite fit it all in there. But what the heck, we're here with you on a Saturday morning, a little Saturday morning pod for you. And some big news, obviously, on the football field, a couple commits, including Jude James from St. Charles, Missouri, Francis Howell High School, to be exact. And hey, where's this guy going to play? He's an athlete. Same thing with Jackson Hancock, Missouri's other commitment from Georgia yesterday. Well, let's hear from Jude James himself. He had a quote on Rivals.com. He said, "It depends on how I grow and how I get built. They're either going to put me at H-back, tight end, or a linebacker safety hybrid. They don't know yet. If I had the opportunity, I'd love to play offense, but I just love football." And one thing, you watch his highlights, his huddle highlights for Jude James here, 6'4", 200 pounds. One thing that really stands out, the kid absolutely loves contact. He is not afraid to get his nose in there whatsoever. Defensively, he's absolutely a hard-hitting type of, safety linebacker hybrid. You can see it already. Now, he was mostly a safety, it seemed like. In fact, I thought he showed a little bit more in deep coverage than Jackson Hancock did. We'll get to Hancock here in a little bit. But though both of them, if they end up on defense, I would say project, at least at first glance, as more box safeties or the star position. Think what Dalen Carnell is going to play this year for Missouri and obviously played last year. Martez Manuel as well, another good example of maybe the type of player you're looking at there. But offensively, on the other hand, Jude James, in high school, he was kind of just a, hey, go up and get it type wide receiver. In other words, a jump ball guy. Throw it up, and my 6'4", 200-pound frame will probably be able to outmuscle a smaller high school cornerback. Well, I just say I would definitely give him every shot to play tight end at the next level. It sounds like that's maybe his preference. Don't get me wrong. He seems like a guy's not afraid to hit, once again, defensively too. But I can really see his skill set projecting to be a tight end for sure. He doesn't have like flat out straight line outside wide receiver speed, at least as far as I could see on his highlights. But I do think at that size, with his physicality, he definitely has enough wiggle, enough get up and go to play that tight end position. And again, the ability to high point the ball that he showed while playing the slot, while playing outside receiver, to me, that's something that could translate to the tight end position for sure. And it's something that I think Missouri's obviously been lacking here in the Drinkwitz era, somebody who can go up and make a play in the middle of the field from the tight end position. Again, Jude James, a guy who's athletic enough, physical enough, I think, to be able to do both. Now, if you're going to hate on this commitment a little bit, it's actually pretty easy to do. You can just say, well, heck, he only had offers from Memphis and from the service academies. Army and Navy were probably his most notable offers other than Missouri anyway. Well, I would just say he did recently visit Kansas State and Iowa State last fall, at least according to Rivals.com, took a visit to Notre Dame's campus as well. So he certainly is on the radar from some Power 5 major schools. It just seems like, it just took a minute for his recruiting to rise, as it does with some people. All I'll say is, as far as A your plan A type guys. You're not going to take a guy like Jude James this early if you didn't really want him. My point is this isn't a backup plan for Missouri. Listen, if you want to question Drinkwitz's evaluations, we can have that conversation, but clearly him and his staff think that this guy's worth taking right now. Oh, and by the way, yes, I realize I made a bit of a grammar snafu there. He and his staff, not him and his staff, kids. Sorry, I speak extemporaneously here. Gonna mess up the grammar sometimes. Mom, yeah, I'm talking to you. But anyway, let's talk about Jackson Hancock, the other player. This is more of a small town Georgia type kid. Canton, Georgia. I guess not that small of a town, 20,000 people or so, but just watching his film, it just didn't seem like the competition was very good. And that may be why Jackson Hancock is a kid that Missouri may have gotten a little bit under the radar here. Again, you want to pick this commitment apart, you can do the same thing you did with Jude James. Hey, why does he only have offers from App State, Troy, and Georgia State? Well, again, I think the competition there really has a lot to do with all that. And if you watch Jackson Hancock's film, he is kind of your classic, hey, the best guy on a small town team. He absolutely did everything on this ball club except play quarterback. Very versatile. Played safety, as I mentioned previously, but he also returned punts. He also played running back and wide receiver. At least, I don't know if he was a full-time running back, but certainly they'd line him up in the backfield occasionally. Maybe think a Tyreek Hill type special situation. But unlike with Jude James, I'm pretty sure at this point, again, really, really, really early analysis and not based on a whole lot here, I think he's going to stick on defense at safety. I like that he's played a bunch of different positions on offense, though, because in theory, that gives him a different perspective. Again, it should allow him to read plays more quickly and effectively. And obviously, you can play faster the more quickly that your mind works. In my opinion, again, obviously, this is a guy that Missouri wanted in Jackson Hancock. They're in on a bunch of 4 and even 5-star players at this point. So clearly not a backup plan. But I got to say, while I've figured out over the years that high school football players are really tough to evaluate, to say the least, I think this kid in particular, being Jackson Hancock, is even particularly tough to evaluate. Again, the competition just not really there on film. Again, not that I know that much about Canton, Georgia, but just at first glance, I think that would be tough to figure out if this kid's going to translate or not. So at this point, I'll just take Missouri and Drinkwitz and his staff. Well, we're just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And speaking of some 5-star kids, well, how about Ryan Wingo and Williams Nowerney? Well, again, those 5-star guys, Missouri probably has a better shot at one of them than the other. At least that's the scuttlebutt right now for sure. So I want to talk about that, and also basketball player John Bowl being back on the market for Dennis Gates and company. But first, I want to tell you about FanDuel, because you need to take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball and on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets. That's win or lose. $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over/under to who you think is going to hit the first homer of the ball game, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super simple to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. And every dayers, it's pretty simple. Just stay tuned to your feed, whether it is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it might be. There's going to be a lot of recruiting news breaking over the next week or so. I'm going to have it all here for you, all my takes, all my reactions. So, yeah, be sure to stick here. And by the way, we're on the SiriusXM app as well, and so are the St. Louis Cardinals against the New York Yankees today. Check them out on the app or on 176 on your radio dial. But you know what? Here's the thing. Missouri, Ryan Wingo, I don't want to do the "you're telling me there's a chance" Dumb and Dumber reference here. That's a little bit overblown. And plus, Missouri has better than a 1 in a million shot here. In fact, the scuttlebutt right now, according to everybody online that I've been reading, is that Texas is probably the leader right now for Ryan Wingo. However, Missouri is a relatively close second, and it doesn't seem like anybody else is really in the race. So here's the thing. Here's what's good for Missouri there, in my opinion. And maybe this is just the fan in me speaking, but hey, guess what? This is a fan-based podcast. Now, I mentioned earlier that a lot of times your plan A type players are probably going to sign before the football season starts. Well, Ryan Wingo is such a high-level prospect. Williams Nwaneri a little bit too, sort of the same deal. They're such high-level prospects that they have the luxury of waiting. Whether it's Missouri, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Texas, whoever it is, you're going to leave a spot. You'll make room for a kid like that if he wants to come a little bit later. So while this is actually good for Missouri, it seems like every year in the offseason, the talk is, hey, Texas, they're back, baby. And of course, a lot of people think Texas should be favored to win the Big 12 this upcoming season. But as we've seen in the past, well, the Longhorns have a history, recently at least, of falling flat on their face in the face of expectations. So I actually think Missouri is going to be a little bit better than expectations this year. So, hey, actually, if this goes on a little bit longer, I actually think that gives Missouri a better shot. At least that's my opinion. Mostly because I think, again, right now, if for whatever reason the rules changed and Ryan Wingo were suddenly forced to choose a college today, it seems like he would pick Texas. So it's actually a good thing in this case that we're letting this play out. Now, as for the aforementioned Williams Nwaneri, he is arguably the best player in the entire country, certainly rated by almost everybody as the best defensive lineman in the entire country. Looking like a real long shot for him. Certainly Missouri did everything it could this past weekend to make him feel special, make a big pitch. Of course, a lot of it had to do with name, image, and likeness. Hey, you signed the national letter of intent now in Missouri, the NLI for NIL. Boy, that's not confusing at all, is it? Too many letters. Don't like that letter salad whatsoever, but I digress. The point is, now in Missouri, once you sign a national letter of intent, you're now able to collect name, image, and likeness money, even though you're still a high school player. That's pretty unique to Missouri and a unique pitch. But at this point, doesn't seem like that's going to happen for Missouri, and it definitely seems like Ryan Wingo's a better shot. But when it comes to both of those guys, Missouri is not going to stop recruiting them until either one flat out says no. Well, I felt like I definitely avoided the very predictable "Hey Jude" reference when it comes to Jude James. But I'll tell you what, it's been a long and winding road on the John Bowl recruitment for Missouri and for the University of Florida at this point. You know, it was funny a couple weeks ago, a lot of people were upset with Gabe DeArmond over at Power Mizzou, and he reported a couple days before John Bowl's commitment to Florida that it was looking like Missouri was going to be the decision. But you know what? It didn't take long for Gabe to walk that back with some different information, with people saying, oh, that's actually doesn't look like that's the case anymore. Quite honestly, I think people's anger at Mr. DeArmond, well, I think it was a little misplaced there. I really just think something happened there at the last second, whether it was a name, image, and likeness deal. I really have no idea, or just a simple case of a young man changing his mind at the last second. Neither one of these would be that shocking, but the point is, well, John Bowl committed to Florida, to the shock of and pain, I guess, of probably some Missouri fans and seemingly the Missouri staff as well, if you believe the reports out there. I think they were as shocked as anybody, at least a couple days out from the news. Well, John Bowl has seemingly changed his mind once again. He has decommitted from Florida. He's back on the market. Does that mean Missouri is the leader for his services? I don't know. I can't go that far. I don't have any inside information here, but certainly you know Dennis Gates is in his ear, in his text message feed, his DMs, sliding on in there, whatever it might be, but certainly a top 30 type player, 7'1" guy who can move a little bit. Certainly not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, you'll take him, to say the least. He's got the kind of requisite skill and ability to move around that I think Dennis Gates likes too, but obviously anybody in the country is going to take a top 30 prospect almost blindly. And coming up, one NBA draft follower who runs a Substack online really likes Aiden Shaw's potential for a breakout next season. I do too, but I actually think this guy goes a little bit too far with it. So let's talk about Aiden and his ability to break out next season right after these quick words. So KJ online on Twitter, who runs a Detroit Pistons focused and NBA draft Substack, really all about the prospects. He says, quote, Missouri freshman Aiden Shaw is a player to look out for next season. The 6'8" forward is an elite athlete who's also a great defender. Shaw has a lot of potential and could have a big season next year. Well, I couldn't agree more on the potential, but I wouldn't call Aiden Shaw a great defender based on what I saw last season. Now, does he have the potential to be a great defender? Without a doubt. There's no question that Aiden Shaw can be a great defender in the SEC. But like a lot of true freshmen, like a lot of young guys in general without a ton of experience at this level, a lot of times he was a step slow last year in terms of recognition, or on the other side, a little overly aggressive at times. That's why you saw, I think, Aiden committing a lot of fouls per minute. So again, tons of potential on both sides of the court for Aiden Shaw. I love his potential offensively as well. I think he can actually get there as soon as this season, by the way. I think this season, maybe he puts it all together and really takes a huge leap forward. But I just don't think you can call him a great defender. Not yet. I just think that's a little silly. To me, I think this is what I would call Russell Westbrook syndrome, where for years and years people thought the NBA's Russell Westbrook was a great defensive player because he looks like he should be a good defender, because he's so rangy and athletic for the point guard position, such a hyper athlete who plays extremely hard at all times, especially during his athletic prime. But at the same time, again, Russell Westbrook often was out of position, lunging for steals, just making bad decisions, bad reads. Again, you can look like a good defender in terms of your body and everything and your athleticism, but that doesn't mean you are a good one. And as somebody who does just about daily, right? just about daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers and college sports in general, oftentimes, I make a lot of predictions. Some of them right, some of them wrong. I think, maybe what's my worst call I've ever made? That's a tough one. Maybe the fact that I said Tyler Macon was going to be a star when he was in high school. That one has yet to come to fruition. I will admit that, to say the least. But one good prediction I think I've made lately, at least it's looking pretty good right now, is that I think I've really been thinking for a while, I for all the talk of conference realignment, particularly with San Diego State possibly going to the Pac-12, I've said for a while now, I just think for the rest of this year, probably at least maybe the rest of the academic year, this coming 23-24, I think we're out of major realignment for a while. Without going too much into it, again, for those of you who are everydayers have heard this before, long story short, I think with interest rates rising, simply put, that makes borrowing money, spending money a lot more expensive for these huge media corporations. And what do we see Disney doing right now? If you follow the stock market like I do and just the sports media landscape in general, ESPN is laying people off. They are cutting costs as fast as they possibly can with some really notable on-air talent, including the NBA's lead analyst on the air for the last, 15 plus years or so in Jeff Van Gundy. So basically, and then on top of that, streaming just hasn't been, that was my other point. Number two, streaming has not been the lucrative thing that everybody would expect. The whole streaming thing of, Disney Plus, Netflix, yada, 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 all the new ones in particular. Disney Plus just continues, and ESPN Plus, they're just not getting to the subscribers that they were projecting 2+ years ago at this point. So I think all of that is making it so San Diego State, who has clearly been trying to get out of the Mountain West for a long time here, make its way to the Pac-12. This is at least the second time where it's felt like they've been pretty darn close, but at this point, I just don't think the money is there. I think they're going to have to figure out the media rights part of this, especially the Pac-12 at this point. They're going to have to figure out where they stand in this whole media rights thing before they add on a new program. And at this point, does it seem like Disney wants to spend a lot of money on adding Pac-12 product? Doesn't really seem like it. If anything, I think the only thing that I expected that was going to be added was the SEC getting a 9th game. Well, we're not there yet. And if we're not there with the SEC yet on adding a 9th game, kind of tells me again that I was probably onto something when it comes to these companies being a lot more hesitant to spend big on new media deals, helping to facilitate new teams getting to a conference. I just think we're going to be on pause here for the foreseeable future. Ultimately, does San Diego State get to the Pac-12? Yeah, probably. It sure seems like it. I just don't think it's going to happen as soon as the Aztecs or maybe some reporters online are thinking. And hey, thanks as always for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. And again, every day or stay locked to this feed because we got all kinds of potential commitments, including Nicholas Rodriguez, a guy that Ohio State is in on too. So if you want some big offers for a Missouri recruit, there you go. There's a guy who could potentially be a Tiger coming up soon. Lots of other potential names to look at, including James Madison on July 4th. There you go. There's some patriotism for you. So until next time, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked on Mizzou.